So look, if you want to grow your wealth, your income, and increase the amount of time off, then these are the shortcuts that can help. Welcome to the Wealth Creation Podcast.
Dan, so we are live. So we're live in the Mastermind Group. Welcome. If you're watching in the Mastermind Group, then please come and say hello. Let me know that you're here. And if you're listening to a podcast, then please give us a 5-star review. We always love reviews. But today I've got a special guest who is the author of this book. If you want to know about property sourcing compliance, then Tina is the person that you want to speak to. Let me bring Tina on. Hey, Tina, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm very well, thanks, Dan. How are you?
Good. Yes, good, thank you. I know Tina from, I don't know, it's got to be 8 years, something like that.
We met in December 2011.
Was it? Wow, so it is 8 years, going on to 9 years. And very interesting because you were looking at how to get into property and how to expand what you're doing in property. And really it was you that identified that there was a gap in the market for compliance because most property sources, I say most, I mean all, was just not legal. And actually, even today, most property sources I've spoken to are still not legal. And so Tina's built a business around helping property sources make sure that they stay on the right side of the law by getting compliant. How did that journey first start, Tina?
Oh, way back when I met you, and then Tony and I decided that we wanted to work with you as a mentor. And we didn't know what to do at all. We'd hurt ourselves financially just before the drop, if you remember, and lost quite a bit of money investing in the wrong way. So we didn't really want to invest initially in property. And it was you that said, have you thought about property sourcing? And I said, what was that? And you said, go off and research it. And that was just where it started. And that was January 2012. And we spent quite a bit of time then working with you and researching everything. And it was at that point during that research in that first 10 months that I realized that there was nothing out there about it. And whilst there may have been a few courses, none of them talked about the compliance because, as you know, and I think you believe anyway, that compliance isn't sexy. And I agree with you, it's not. Yeah. It can be an incredibly dry subject, but it's also incredibly important, not just from a professional business setup, but for the protection of the investors that you work with as well. Because you know as well as I do that a lot of investors get royally fleeced by a lot of sources. And
you know what? It's like in property, it's like there's so many sharks in property, and it drives me insane. And you know, I saw a video just recently, which you may or may not have shared, of a guy talking about how compliance is irrelevant. And I'm like, let's see how relevant it is when you're picking up the soap in prison. Because it's pretty damn relevant at that point, I would suggest. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's like, no, oh, well, you don't need compliance. And I've seen trainers, compliance, no, anyone can start as a property source, so you don't need compliance. I'm like, are you crazy? You're going to go to prison. You're going to get fined.
I think the problem, I mean, I don't disrespect anyone's courses. I never will. But I think the problem with a lot of property sourcing courses and deal packaging courses out there is that they have a tendency to sell the roses around the door story to get people to buy the product. And they're not necessarily completely honest as to the level of compliance that's required. There are a lot of really good deal packaging courses out there, but for me, what they don't do is cover the compliance early enough, and they're not honest enough about it. Yeah. I've had a lot of people that have come on my one-dayer and said, I wished I'd done this before I paid 3, 4, 7 grand for a course, because that level of compliance just isn't for me. And that's what I think is unfair. I think the courses are cracking in the deal packaging content, but I think we need to be more open and honest as an industry as to the level of compliance that's required, which is what I'm trying to do, and probably at the moment maybe upsetting a few people down.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with upsetting people. I do it daily. So I like polarizing people because I always say, look, we're going to love you, in which case we're going to buy from you, or we're going to hate you, in which case we're never going to waste my time on the phone or in person. And I like polarizing people. But I think you're absolutely right. When you talk about understanding the level of activity it takes to become compliant is significant. And for someone like me, and I hate forms and I hate compliance, by the way, and I hate, you know what I'm like with authority, Tina. I'm not the best, shall we say. And I hate all that stuff. The only reason I got, you'll love this, but in my lettings agency, the only reason on my lettings agency we got, what's it called, data protection compliant was that, and after, it took 10 years, by the way, the only reason we did it is because to get included in the ombudsman, they need your certificate. That was literally the only reason why we did it. Yeah. And I was running on this idea of, well, who's policing this? No one's policing it, so it doesn't what's the point? Do you know what I mean? I know that we do things right, and we don't need a certificate to do that, but other people need it. Now, in compliance on property sourcing, people are checking into it. So you actually do need to do it. If we were doing it, like that 10 years ago, we'd get caught out and we'd be, bunking with, I don't know, thinking of a famous prisoner, I can't think of one. But it's just not worth doing. So how intense is it, or how long does it take, I should say, to get compliant, would you say, to do it properly?
I think it depends on how much time you've got and whether you want to write it all yourself or whether you want to purchase what's necessary, Dan, really is what I say to everybody that I speak to. It depends on whether you want to sit there writing policies and procedures, if that's your background and you know how to do it and where to start. And most people don't do. But if you sort of get the policies and you just adapt them for yourself and you do your registrations, you should be fully compliant and up and running within 4 months. And the delay will be HMRC, who have a backlog at the moment, and taking anywhere between, 2 months and sometimes 4 or 5 months for confirmation to come through.
Wow.
What they've also turned around and said in the main to people that have spoken to them is that as long as you have all of the compliance measures in place for your anti-money laundering, which isn't just your registration, there's a lot that sits under it, then you can operate pending confirmation of acceptance. And I haven't heard of anyone yet that's been denied because basically they're just looking to see that you don't have a serious fraud, deception, criminal record. I think that's what the basis of the checks are around, which makes sense for anti-money laundering registration. If you think,
So this again is one of the problems. People pay 2-3 grand on a training course. They go on the course, and really technically they shouldn't be doing anything till they're filled in all the compliance. And of course, the trainers are saying, "No, you don't need to do compliance. It's fine." And so they're starting off on the wrong foot immediately. And then they kind of realise, actually, I do need compliance. And then they start the journey. And then 4 months later, they're still on the blooming journey. And it's like they put all this money in, they're eager to get started, but legally, they're not allowed to get started. And what basically happens is they start on the compliance, they kind of get stuck and don't know who to turn to because the trainers don't help them because they don't understand it. And then they're like, where do I go? And they've lost all that momentum. They've lost the initial money. And that's like, you need to come on your training, obviously. Or, by the way, some of the AML guides, some of the anti-money laundering guides that they can buy from you, they need to basically sign up for those, and that will streamline. Like, I'm no good at writing policies. Can't write my own name sometimes, let alone somebody else's policy, So they should be buying that, and that will streamline that process. Yeah.
The reason that I've started releasing the documentation that we use is because that my goal was not to go into the training sector. That was never on the cards, Dan, and longer term, that was never been the goal. But in order for me to achieve my vision, which was the 100% compliance in the industry, I've had no choice but to be dragged kicking and screaming to where I am now. To achieve it, I've got to do it.
Sorry to interrupt, but interestingly to me, some trainers go out because they make more money from training than they do from property. We won't mention names, but we know who they are. Whereas you're kind of opposite. You definitely don't want to do training, and it's like you're too cheap anyway on your training days. I've told you this.
You're telling me.
It's because you don't want to do it, and you want to help people rather than get people in a room and upsell them to £1,000 training courses. And that's the difference. That's one of the reasons why we love you so much and we continue to work with you as one of our clients. But it's kind of back to front where for most trainers, they just see the money, because I can put on a course for £1,000, 2 days, 6 people, 6 grand, off you go, never speak to them again. I'm happy because I made 6 grand. And you're not like that. You're completely the opposite, and would like that.
I know that sometimes you tell me that I've got it imbalanced the wrong way, but I'm not geared the way that you're geared, and a lot of other people are geared for the way that you sort of operate in that mindset. That I don't have that sales mindset. I really, really struggle with that. And I think I always will do. I have adapted a little bit. But the reason that we're doing the packs that I know you're going to talk about in a few minutes is because I don't want people paying thousands of pounds to work with me. I don't really have time to do that. It's not where I want to go. Yeah. So we've had to adapt how we've worked and said, okay, what do people need? They don't need me to teach them how to deal package, and there's tons of people out there doing it. They want to be compliant, but when they pay these thousands of pounds for courses, they don't have the money to do a one-to-one with me. So how can we dumb it down, for want of a better description? So literally that's why we're packaging up my documents a pack at a time, so that They don't have to have the one-to-one that goes with it. They can get them at a reasonable cost for documents that we've had assessed by solicitors and gone through and pay thousands of pounds for a few £100 that they can then implement and change and adapt for their business and run compliantly, which was the ultimate goal in the first place. And that's why we got...
So, like at the bottom of the screen, you'll see we've got AML Pack 1, which is, well, you tell me what's included in AML Pack 1. Tell me how much it is. Tell me why someone should get that rather than trying to do it themselves.
AML Pack 1 is basically the introduction to AML, and you get a copy of my AML guide, which is literally the document that we use with our investors as a guide to why we ask them the things that we do and why we ask for copies of the documentation that we ask for. So, you know that we're always saying in market, try and head off all of those questions so that it doesn't drag you down for time. This document does that as a guide for our investors. It tells them how we operate, why we operate, what we're going to ask them for. And basically, if they're not prepared to play the game, then they can go somewhere else. And that's basically our attitude with the investors. So that's a copy of the guide that we use in our investor pack that we send out to all of our investors.
Yeah.
The other document in there that there is in Pack 1 is our AML policy. It's a basic anti-money laundering policy. I run with very, very in-depth anti-money laundering policies that I purchase every year for a high cost, which most sources can't afford. And to be honest, you don't need. You know me, I dot the I's and I cross the T's.
Yeah.
This is a basic policy which will hold you and is perfectly fine for you to operate as a sourcer until you gain more knowledge as to around the in-depths of AML, and then you can either upgrade and make it more complex or keep it simple. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah.
It's a policy, and the policy is a legal requirement under anti-money laundering registration.
So what happens if you get a knock at the door and the boys in blue are there and you've not got your documentation in place? What happens?
Well, this is where the argument about, as you know, some people are saying at the moment that compliance isn't important and putting this message out there. And the problem is that HMRC, we all love HMRC, govern anti-money laundering. Now, HMRC cannot be negotiated with. And what I say to everyone is ignorance is no defence in the law. Legally, you should have all of the things in place that you require under anti-money laundering. And if they come and knock on your door and they're regularly going out and doing unannounced spot checks on estate agency registered businesses, and as a source, you have to register as an estate agent for them.
You are an estate agent. There's no getting away from it.
You have an estate agency type business. They come and knock on your door and you're registered and you don't have all of the documentation in place, they will fine you. There is no two ways about it. And some of these fines will make one of these deal packaging courses look like a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
In February, they issued in excess of £300,000 worth of fines across 50 estate agency businesses in 1 week. 1 week alone. Now, someone I know is going to come back and say, so how many sources have been fined?
Yeah.
I can't answer you that, but what I can say is one of my one-to-one clients who is in my Facebook group was actually inspected.
Oof.
Now, he had never, ever done a source deal. He'd set his company up legally and compliantly, but he'd gone off and bought a project as a development to do, which had taken him away from the sourcing. He'd never sourced a deal. He wasn't working with any investors. He was inspected on his home address doorstep, and they came in and they went through his documentation. Now, it was lucky he followed everything that I told him to do, and he passed with flying colours. But they are coming out and they will inspect. So what concerns me hugely is people being taught that compliance is not important, that nobody out there is going to catch you.
Yeah. And also the other side of that is there's no point in going, well, the trainer said I'm fine, I'll pass it on to my trainer. The trainer's just going to go, I didn't say that. We know what trainers are like. You know.
My comment is always, those people that are teaching you this, will they pay you fine if you're fined?
Exactly.
The answer is, will they hell as like? You know, so as much as I won't disrespect anyone's training courses, to deliberately go out and say to people compliance doesn't matter, I think is appalling. I mean, my background, compliance has always mattered, and that's just me, and I get it. I get that. Yeah. But sourcing, you know, is a professional business. If you're going to run a business and you want to be a professional, you want to be accepted as a professional, please set it up in a professional way.
Yeah, we say this.
It's not going to have longevity of business.
If you're just going to dip your toe in the water, you're just going to get a wet toe. You need to submerge yourself and go in properly. If you're going to do it properly. A friend of mine when VAT threshold was like 70 grand a couple of years back, and he was like, no, just do up to 70 grand. And he's like, got this artificial limit. And his business could have done £500,000, but he had this artificial limit so that he stopped himself. So, he could be very, very wealthy today, but today he's working 60-hour weeks still. This is 20 years ago, whatever. And it's like, why have this limitation? If you're going to go in and do it properly so that you can reap the rewards of all that hard work. And if you're going to be compliant, go and do that properly. Because if you've got compliance, go out and do 5 deals a week or a month or a quarter. Go in and do it properly and immerse yourself into this world. What I love about property sourcing is that someone with no money can make some money very quickly, but they have to get compliant. And it can be literally life-changing. I know one guy, was one of my clients, and he bought 10 deals, and they're all rent-to-rent deals, slightly different than below market value and so on. But he'd buy a couple of those. But he bought 10 in like 6 months, and it changed his life, And the person that helped him find those, it changed their life, because now he had a client. All he had to do was go out and find deals and keep sending them over. A couple of more clients like that. That guy's now financially free. It has the power to change people's lives fundamentally from last year or the last decade, and yet people are skimping on it and trying to cut corners instead of actually going out and doing what they're supposed to do.
I think it's because they enter into it believing that there's no cost to them to actually set up, when actually there is.
Yes. Yeah.
And it isn't, you will have money in the bank in the first 4 weeks. Well, certainly not operating compliantly anyway. You're not going to do it unless you're a whiz kid. Even I couldn't get all the paperwork together from scratch in 4 weeks. I think my one-to-one clients, the fastest he turned it around and had a deal, which was going through, was 4 months. Yeah. And he was working on it full time, and he was hammering, getting all the documentation in place. But use the time that you're getting compliant to build the relationships with the investors. You don't have to be sitting on your backside doing nothing.
Yeah.
You can do it, but accept that there is going to be a time scale. You're not going to get money in the bank in the first 4 weeks, 8 weeks. At the end of the day, how long is it taking to get a property sale over the line these days? 12 to 16 weeks?
Yeah.
Sometimes longer than that. And that's if there's no issues that crop up, because at the end of the day, you're at the mercy of the solicitors.
Yeah, and valuers and the sellers.
And everything else that go on. And, some solicitors throwing up something silly on a sale, and then, there being panic attacks and everything, and then trying to sort that out. It happens. It isn't going to get over the line in 30 seconds flat. And I always say, give yourself some breathing space and accept it may take you 12 months to get your first deal over the line compliantly.
Yeah.
But then you will have a professional basis set up. A lot of people come into it with a full-time job. They can't sit there 8 hours a day doing this. It depends on how much time you've got. And of course, your compliance and everything, just the registrations and your insurance, Dan, will cost you about £1,200.
Yeah.
You've got to have
that. You've spent that money on a training course.
Yeah. And they don't know that that's not all of your documentation. We just talked about Pack 1. That's not all of your documentation. Sorry?
How much is Pack 1?
I think it's just over £100, but I think there's a discount on the one that you're going to release, and I think that goes at $99, Dan.
Okay. And tell me about Pack 2 then.
Pack 2 is what I call, it's my biggie. It's basically my investor business in a damn box, is this one, Dan. The lower, you can buy documents individually in these packs as well. You don't have to buy the whole pack. But the lower level one is what I call the source of funds guide, which is another guide. And when you're talking about anti-money laundering, one of the things that you have to prove is that you've shown where the source of funds has come from. Yeah. And this guide is also a part of our investor pack. And it highlights to them various aspects where a source of funds could come from inheritance, a lottery win, from you pulling some cash out of a pension, downsizing your house, whatever it is. And so it gives you a list of potential sources of funds, and then it explains to the investor what evidence we will accept to prove that source of funds. So again, it stops all of those questions coming in. Why do you want this? What is it for? What do you need from me? It explains it right from the word go. So that's one. The secondary form is what's known as the source of funds audit form, which is a kind of a double indemnity for us under anti-money laundering. Okay. We get the investors to complete this. And they stipulate where the source of funds has come from, what evidence they've provided, and they sign and date it to say that that is accurate. Not telling any lies or misleading anyone. Because whilst HMRC don't expect us to be Sherlock Holmes, they do expect us to do a certain amount of due diligence. So for us, that's just a double indemnity for us. And the biggie on this one is our complete registration and due diligence process for our investors. And that's split into two sections, which is either as an individual or as a company, because of course the due diligence for them is slightly different. And that is a legal requirement under the anti-money laundering regulations, that you have this full written procedure. And it's this that HMRC want to see if they come in and check you. And if you don't have it, you're just going to get fined.
Yeah.
And, this registration has taken me 7 years of working through, of pulling together. And it's our core way of assessing our investors.
Yeah.
Each of those documents that I've talked about in part 2 and part 1, each come with a training video with me, giving you a screenshot of the document and taking you through it.
Yeah.
So it's not just you downloading a document and then going away and thinking, well, I've got this, great, well, what does it do and how do I use it? There's me talking you through each of these documents as to how we use it and how you might look to adapt it, because how we work as a business could be completely different for you. I have systems in place that you may not have, so you're going to have to adapt these documents.
Yeah. And also, like, filling forms, like, it's like, I remember going for job after job after job 20 years ago, and you've got a CV, so you go with that, and then you get to the interview, and you have to fill in a form, and you've got 5 interviews on the same day. You've got 5 forms to fill. I hate filling forms. Do you know what I mean? I'm dreadful at it. But having someone with a video to go, okay, now section 3C, fill this in. Don't do section 4 because that's rubbish, but section 5 you need to do, and you need to put this. That makes life so much easier. And then what support do we get if they buy one of the AML packs? Do we get some extra support, maybe through the group, or how does that work?
Yeah, I've had an email this morning from someone that's bought it, and they've thought that the video was absolutely fantastic, but for them, they haven't understood some sections of it, and they just outlined some questions. So I'll just respond with answers to the questions. I really don't have a problem with that. You can have my direct email contact is Tina, Tina, at SPS, Sierra Papa Sierra, UK.co.uk. If you purchase any of these packs and you don't understand anything at all, please just get in touch.
Yeah.
My goal is to get everybody compliant, not to confuse the hell out of everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So just before we go on to the next bit, so if anyone's got any questions about compliance, then please, now's your time to ask. But you've also got a compliance Facebook group, Tina. Tell me a little bit more about that.
We've had the compliance Facebook group set up for a few years now, and it just grows organically on its own. I mean, we started out with just me and Tony in it originally. Now we've got yeah, we've got now I think approaching 5,600 members organically. We've doubled in the last 12 months. Yeah. And what the group is about is giving as much free content and support as I possibly can do to both investors and sources in the sector. There's over 130 videos in there that are free of charge to access, documents to download. I do 2 live events in the morning, compliance over coffee on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I do a live Q&A every 4 weeks where you can go in and ask any questions that you want. We put articles in there, updates if there's any changes in legislation, so that my members in there are the first people to be told about it. And it's free for you to join, but it is a private group, so you have to apply to come in. Yeah. And it's property sourcing compliance support with Tina Walsh.
Yeah, brilliant. And so, sometimes I need to find that group, and so on the top on Facebook in the search bar, you just type in property sourcing compliance, and it comes up, and you'll see Tina's thing. Just click on that. And then click. Do you do the 3 question thing?
Yeah, you can. There's a couple of questions in there. 1, are you interested in having a chat with me about any sort of ongoing training or anything? And then 2 is what you're hoping to get out of the group. But it's made clear that you don't have to answer those questions and give me an email address to get access. If you're not interested in training, that's absolutely fine. It's not what it's about. Yeah. But if you do want more support, then that option is there for you. And I just get in touch with you. You go into a stream where you get an option to book a free 30-minute call with me just to chat about what you're having problems with. That's all done.
Yeah. It's nice because as a business owner, I find myself connecting with people who are about doing the right thing as opposed to just making lots of money. It's like the money comes secondary, doesn't it? But if you go out and just do the right thing, the money will turn up anyway. But actually what you end up building is a tribe of people who will continue to do business with you anyway, but who trust you. And the property trainers out there, the other way. They want to get the money first. And when someone puts a hand up and complains about something or asks a question that makes them uncomfortable, they get bounced out of the group. And we've seen this, especially right now with what's going on in the property training arena. We've seen this quite a bit. But I love the fact about you, Tina, that you say it as you see it, and your primary role is to help somebody, not to make money off them. And I think you've been very successful on that. And I think that's probably why the group's grown from 2,000-3,000 to the 5,000 people that you've got. Plus, you probably used a really good marketing company to help you do it, who may or may not be on the call. So,
yeah.
But I also love the fact that you go live 3 times. Is it 3 times a week, or is it twice a week that you go live?
It's twice a week on compliance. Once every 4 weeks, there's a live Q&A. Plus, we do webinars occasionally. And as my mentor on marketing will tell me, I need to go live more on my own personal Facebook page and start doing. So I can't imagine what that is, Dan, but he's not far off.
Wonderful. Well, I think we've pretty much covered everything I wanted to get through today, because like I've got a property sourcing training program. It's got 90 videos, and I get onto compliance. And you know what I tell people on compliance? Buy the bloody book. And that's what I tell people. Don't listen to me on compliance. I can't stand compliance. Buy it from the person who loves it, which is you. And Tina will help you go through everything that you need to get to be legally compliant. And if you're not legally compliant, you're opening up the doors for some sort of legal action potentially. But thank you so much for coming on, and we'll speak to you soon.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invitation, Dan. It's been great.
Thank you. All right, take care, everybody. Speak soon.
Hey, it's Dan here. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Please click like or subscribe to the entire podcast.